The perpetual meta in Star Citizen is real, and it is not going anywhere. Let's discuss that. Welcome back, my name is Gipsy Ronin. As Star Citizen is a space sim, it also largely features many major components of an MMO and an FPS. The majority of our interactions will revolve around the MMO aspect, and because of that, and its relevancy to the topic, I will be leaning on my previous 15 plus years MMO experience. While these particular titles were not space-based games, it does not invalidate how we as gamers react in games when there are aspects with boosting one's ability to dominate. So some of my references will be from my long experiences in World of Warcraft, and as such, Blizzard Entertainment. Recently, we had the Ares Ion receive a nerf. Yes, and I apologize. I did not want to bring it up, but here we are. This prompted many discussions on the forums, as well as videos from content creators. In short, the Ares was a cool idea, but I feel a bad idea. It never should have existed, but was an easy ship sale. The bespoke nature of it makes it impossible to ever really get that balancing just right. And so far, the only way to bring balance seems to reduce its overall burst damage, as well as make sure its accuracy is severely hampered. Originally, I myself went for the Inferno, as the ballistic aspect and its ability to do component damage intrigued me. That, and the fact that it was obvious a fighter with a massive size 7 weapon attached to it was going to do insane damage. Sold as a capital killer, this was not the reason I got the ship. To pull from the film Apollo 13, I believe the line that echoed in my head was,
I don't care what anything was designed to do. I care about what it can do.
And that's why the Ares was always destined to be the new meta at release, beyond being just the new hotness. That motto is how I believe the vast majority of backers think when planning out their fleets. Such as the case, for example, with the Banu Merchantman. It was designed to be a merchant place, where you would sit down and sell your goods. But what can it do? Well, we know that it is heavily armed, heavily armored, and basically has a hull C's worth of cargo that is internally protected. Some will use the merchant aspect, yes, but most will be using it as a highly defendable cargo hauler, much like the M2. Many got it because they saw it was a more armored C2 to try and better protect their investments. So again, it wasn't about what it was designed to do, it's about what it can do. Many got the Ares to lay smackdown not just on larger ships, but to also, well, be able to steamroll the smaller ships. And it did that, because that's what a size 7 weapon will do to a small ship. The PvP aspect is where things get a little dicey. Montoya of Test Squadron had recently mentioned nerfing these took away the ability to have their lesser skilled pilots take on more skilled pilots, and I do see that side of the argument. I really do. I also see the top pilots simply staying with the most dominant fighters to do the maximum damage, as that's the nature of MMOs and players who play a hell of a lot. From raiding in World of Warcraft to raiding in, say, Destiny 2, and loads of other titles out there. Hardcore gamers find the best thing with each patch to maximize output, and it trickles down to the rest of the community, and thus the new meta is born. As a recent video pointed out by the content creators Salty Mike and Moist Noodle mentioned, Ares were everywhere, and it got boring to see. It was the meta, and while the ship is a capital killer, it was one-shotting small ships. Sometimes to troll, sometimes for legitimate gameplay, but it doesn't matter. And it's because it's a goddamn size 7 on a fighter. Yes, of course it's going to one-shot small ships. It's designed to kill capitals. But the brochures on the ships even mention this by stating basically you're going to obliterate smaller ships simply by using this weapon. Salty Mike and Moist Noodle also mentioned before the Ares there was a bit more diversity. Not without a meta ship, but at least close enough. And that's as realistic of an expectation for an MMO to ever hope for. As of this video, the current meta is the Gladius. Then, eventually that will get rebalanced, and another ship will become the new meta. Because that's what gamers do. We discover the new meta. This will never go away. All we can do is hope for things to get balanced enough. Cookie cutter specs, min-maxing statistics. It's the way of the MMO gamer. Always has been, always will be. Was the nerf done intentionally to pull the rug from under the backers? No, not at all. I genuinely think CIG was just out of touch with how gamers use tools provided to them when coming up with some of these ideas and how it can impact the game later. No developer is ever going to hit it out the park all the time, but people are buying these things based on what's described to them, and then later it's altered. For developing, you often need to try things to see what works and what doesn't. It gets tricky here. as now you are, say, asking $250 to later see what works and what doesn't. But at the same time, a game is being developed. Gamers should always know to expect changes. It's unfortunate, though, when it is based on a ship with one weapon that's also a bespoke weapon, as that is the ship's entire identity. This ship was going to sell big due to the exact reasons already mentioned. Not many had visions of killing an Idris in their sights, but rather decimating smaller ships and wreaking havoc on larger ones, as they cared about what it could do, not what it was designed to do. And I really feel the developers at CIG need to make sure they have that discussion for future ships. Could a new ship break the game based on what it can do rather than what it is designed to do? Aside from having a ship released very OP, but in this case, was it OP? Or simply was it doing what a size 7 cannon should be doing when hitting a small ship? Regardless, releasing something overpowered at first is very normal in video games. It has happened in the past in Star Citizen. It will continue to happen in the future. It's happened all the time in other MMOs. When Wrath of the Lich King came out in World of Warcraft, they did the first introduction of a new class, the Death Knight. When that class was released, they were almost godlike. I know, I steamrolled through everything. Guildmates were watching and saying how absurd it was. Then, not long after, they received a nerf. It was a massive nerf. When asked why they did this, Blizzard developers said they always prefer to start overpowered, then dial back down so players will want to play this class as it's fun. Then eventually find that balance between fun versus too powerful for the good of everything else. The Death Knight was the meta. Hell, even esports are not immune to this. I was at BlizzCon in 2010. I still have the convention book. That year, druids and priests got a huge buff. It was so absurd. Druids were going into battlegrounds, basically taking on an entire team without ever coming close to death. And during the Arena Championship, I to this day remember seeing every team's composition listed, and it was Druid Priest, all 10 of them. And near year after year, the new meta was always found and represented in esport tournaments. Welcome to MMOs. Spoiler alert, you ready? The Scorpius will be overpowered at release. And in its brochure, it stated to basically be a powerful ship that rains devastation. Unless you need to live with that X-Wing dream, and trust me, I get it, ignore that marketing fluff and expect nerfs and buffs. But in this particular case, it will help the Scorpius by the fact that it is not married to a singular bespoke weapon that's its reason for even existing in the first place. As for the Ares' quoted intended role, it still gets the job done by shooting large ships that even shooting all over the place, you're probably going to hit it just as much. The nerf gave smaller ships a fighting chance on surviving these weapons, but the weapons themselves simply no longer feel like a size 7, and the Ion is for sure a repeater and no longer a cannon. So, to Cloud Imperium Games, I'm begging you, if you have a variant on the board called the Ares Ion Plus or an Ares Inferno Max with size 10 guns on it, just don't. Please, know that it's cool and just leave it there, but never touch it. There is no need to put capital weapons on a heavy fighter. I have an Ares. I feel the ship should have never been created. A ship with a bespoke weapon like that will always suck to balance. Want players to kill a capital? Encourage them to use other capitals. Get the big multi-crew ship to crew up and fight. Let the fighters deal with the defense escorts. Aside from deleting it and chalking it up to a failed experiment and refunding people, the Ares from here on out is as situational as, say, the Eclipse, and probably even more so. That's just my own opinion on it. I know this horse has been beyond beaten, so if you would like to add your perspective, please do so. If not, I understand. This should all thankfully fade away very soon. If you do choose to comment, I'm curious. Do you have an Ares? If so, which one? Or, if you want one, which variant and why? Are you good with the changes? Do you feel CIG can get us to more a balanced level where metas cease to exist? Or are you good with them getting it close enough and just know to expect metas will always be a part of this MMO ecosystem? Beyond that, I have come to peace with this topic. If you enjoyed the content and would like to see more, please be sure to like and subscribe, as that helps support and grow the channel, and I would greatly appreciate it. So until next time, stay badass. This is Gipsy Ronin, out.
Attention citizens. Security forces have reason to believe members of Goon Squadron have breached corporate city defense protocols. Be aware.